Hi, my name is Alyssa Haim, and I wanted to dig deeper into should racist speech enjoy protection under the First Amendment for my final project. The First Amendment states Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I chose this as my topic for my final project because I just I think it's such a problem that racism is still protected under the First Amendment, and we're protecting those who are spreading the hate speech and kind of allowing them the right to spread that hate, but we're not protecting the people who are being harmed, and I think that's just so sad. But anyways, racism is defined as prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. So I got that from Merriam-Webster. In simple terms, racism is a form of hate speech. So the First Amendment allows us the freedom of speech, even if it relates to hate. And as I said before, we do see current examples in our modern society of this taking place and of racism being protected. In November 2018, former military officer Jules Bartow was shopping at the Marine Corps Exchange when he used a racist slur that generally seemed aimed at either an African American employee or an African American man in civilian clothes. He was escorted out of the store and arrested by base security officers and then criminally convicted for using abusive language. It was unclear to whom he addressed the slur, but the court found that the government offered no evidence that any of the individuals towards whom it may have been addressed reacted violently, or that a reasonable person in their positions would have done so. So, the U.S. Court of Appeals found that the racist slur used by the former military officer was protected speech under the First Amendment. In my presentation, I wanted to take kind of both sides and see kind of what those who want racist speech to be protected under the First Amendment are thinking, as well as those who don't want racist speech to be protected under the First Amendment. So this is kind of stemming from the people who want racist speech to be protected under the First Amendment or just want to leave the First Amendment alone. So it stems from the question, why defend something that will occur anyways? So basically, it comes from the idea that outlawing something does not change the way that people think or their actions. So I kind of use this extreme example, but murder is illegal, but it doesn't mean people don't do it. And so I kind of think of that when I think about outlawing racism. Through my research, I found that a lot of people are so scared of having another civil war, especially if you take away something that's been rooted in American history, like the First Amendment, or you alter it or you change it, and people are going to be upset about that. And so, if we were to limit what others may think is their free speech, even if it's directed in a manner of hatred, it could definitely incite more anger and hatred. And I think it's a scary thought, just inciting more anger and hatred into an already angry nation. And racist, as I said before, racist voices will not just disappear. Every action has a reaction. People are going to react. And the next couple of slides are going to be about those who don't want racist speech to be protected under the First Amendment. When I think back to racism and hate speech in general, I think that safety is the most important thing. We should be protecting everyone. Hate speech is violent by nature and can cause physical and psychological harm. That is scientifically proven. And in my next couple slides, I'll kind of address that. But words can cause stress, and if prolonged stress can cause physical harm, then certain types of hate speech can be a form of violence, such as racism. And why should we be exposing young kids to something as hateful as racism? Because they consume media, they see it. Maybe they don't see it in their everyday lives because I think it's such a beautiful thing. I work with kids and they don't see race. But people are taught racism, and young kids are being exposed to this type of hatred at such young ages. And how are they going to be when they're older? This is definitely my opinion, but I do think racism is a form of terrorism. The term terrorism means to invoke terror on a population of people. Um, and by speaking in a way that is racist to others, you are definitely causing fear, you're causing stress, you're causing hurt, and um, so in the next slides, I'll talk about the negative health effects racism can have on just a person. And I think lives are definitely at risk when hate speech is being protected. I think it's important to see how racism can just affect a person in general. If you are having racist slurs thrown at you, um, I mean, that's someone beating up your character. And so that leads to anxiety, depression, PTSD, your stress hormone dysregulation, and substance use disorder. It's a very stressful situation, and I think it's very sad that mental health is so affected by it. I think it's super important to note that when your mental health is deteriorating, your physical health does suffer. Um, and racism has been proven also to have these secondary effects on a higher BMI, cardiovascular disease, poor sleep, inflammation, high blood pressure, and even coronary heart disease. So I kind of wanted to make this a situation where you put your shoes in the shoes of other people. So if you're walking down the street and an individual screams a racial slur at you, I want everyone to think about what would you do in that situation? How would you feel in that situation? But no matter what you did or no matter how you felt, what they did and what they said to you is protected and it's validated by our government. Um, they can say whatever they want to you, even if it's the most hurtful thing you've ever heard, and there's nothing you can do about it. I definitely thought this before my research, but also more so now after I've seen the court cases and the personal stories of people. I don't think that any form of hate speech, such as racism, should be protected in any way, especially by the First Amendment. For those of you who don't know, I'm a psych major, and the first thing that pops into my head when I think of racism is just mental health in general. No hate should be tolerated, especially a type of hate speech that has been proven to deteriorate the mind and body. And I think the First Amendment is outdated for sure, and I hope I live to see a day when the United States government is just able to protect all of its people in their entirety. I also think it's important to know that we maybe don't have to wait for our government to protect us, and we can start doing things now to stop racism from occurring in our community, such as raising awareness, and we can implement programs in schools that address the issue of hate and racism in our community and across the nation. I think that's just such a beautiful thing that yeah we can do things for ourselves and we can take action now because something as big as changing a First Amendment maybe isn't in the near future. And so, yeah, there's things we can do now, and there's things we can do to protect each other. I just wanted to say I think it's super important that we bring mental health and physical health into the question when talking about racism and talking about hate. Because in my opinion, like, it is a form of abuse and it's a emotional abuse for sure. And I mean, you're hurting an individual and they're going to live with that for the rest of their lives. I mean, that's something you don't forget when someone goes out of their way to say something to you about your race in a negative light. And I think it's I've said this a lot, but I think it's sad and I think it's something that we should change. So yeah, I decided to do my project on racism because my mom and I experienced a man at a store. We were at Sam's Club, and I mean he said something racist towards another individual, and it kind of like stopped me, and I was like, this is allowed, like this is okay, this is legal, and yeah, so I'll say it again, it's just sad to me, and yeah, so I decided to do my project on it, because I wanted to understand more, and I did. I understand it a lot more now, and I hope that everyone can walk away knowing more about the conversation surrounding racism and the First Amendment. So, yeah, thank you.